1, 2, 3.
Tag Me Podcast back again with another episode. You are joined by myself, Ola.
And also Anton.
Yes. And we've got another guest in the studio today, Mummy Harrii. Yes, yeah.
Woo.
Mummy, come on,
Come on, Mummy now.
It's awkward. I don't know which way to look.
But yeah, this has been a long time sort of coming actually. So we've got a great guest, Mummy Harrii, and actually before we actually started recording and having this all on tape, we had a sort of long, interesting discussion. We had quite a few discussions, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
On like sort of various different topics, and the kind of encompassing kind of underlying aspect of that is around sort of parenthood and the different sort of aspects that come with it and the realities of parenthood essentially. And I think that's sort of where we're kind of going in terms of the angle of the discussion for the topic. So before I guess we kind of get into some of the more meaty discussions, I want to give you the honors of introducing yourself. Tell the people who you are, what you're about. Let them know, because they can't be disrespecting you anyhow. They need to know who they're messing with.
Just had to,
This North Wheezy. You ain't from South?
No, I'm not from South. I'm not from here either.
I'm from London.
So yeah, I'm Mummy Harrii. I guess to introduce myself, how I came about that title. Obviously I'm a mum, kind of makes sense. And Harrii is because my name is Harriet. That's my government name. Don't ask me why my parents gave me that.
Government.
Do you understand? My surname is also Williams. Anyway, like Harriet Williams. But anyway, I'm Nigerian with Harriet Williams. But yeah, that's me. So I do a lot of, I put a lot of content out there in regards to my social media, and I think that's how we came.
That's how we found out.
Yeah. So it's around parent-related topics. So I do blogs, I do a bit of YouTube. I have discussions on Twitter, I have discussions on Instagram around different subjects, really. But moving on from that, I guess what has come out from that is the fact that I'm also a young parent consultant, and what that basically entails is offering my services to businesses in the UK. So I offer content writing, I'm a public speaker, and I offer research. And I felt like it was very important to kind of do that because of the fact that firstly on my social media, I was getting a lot of young parents coming to me, talking about things that were quite difficult for me to still be hearing, especially, now that I'm 26, I'm still hearing about, a young mum, 6 years, my daughter's now 8, but this is like 8 years down the line, people are still talking about children getting removed by social services, parent breakdown because they had a baby when they were a teenager and stuff like that. And I felt like these are conversations that I could help, just help to facilitate, if I worked with organizations that work with those, with that demographic, basically.
It's an amazing journey.
Yeah.
You had your child when you was
7.
I got pregnant. I got pregnant at 17, and then by 18 I was a mum.
And then now you look at yourself now and you're like,
I'm an old woman.
Hey, no, young still.
I'm an auntie,
Auntie Harrii.
I'm an auntie. Bear in mind, most of my mum friends are not my age. A lot of my mum friends are already in their 40s and stuff.
Grown women.
So their eldest children are, to be honest, like in my head, I'm like, you don't really need to be calling me auntie. I'm like, cool. I'm cool. Yeah. I'm like, it's all right. Call me auntie. Yeah, Auntie Harrii. I kind of like that. Yeah. I'm like that. The one that in KFC with their friends. Hello, auntie. Yes.
Powerful.
I don't have any money for you, but
powerful. But I guess what I want to start off by asking is going back to that experience and that time in your life, being 17, being pregnant, because I sort of remember, at that age, when we knew someone who was pregnant, we were just like, I was scared for them. Really? In terms of the idea and concept of being a parent so young.
You were scared for them? Did you offer any kind of support?
It was you're
just there scared.
Guidance, babysitting and stuff. Support was there, but I guess what was that experience at the time? What was that experience for you, I guess? Because was there that fear of maybe parents having something to say, especially coming from that kind of African background, and What was that sort of like? Were you
Well,
worried,
I
or
guess
was it like-
firstly, I found in regards to you sounded like a very lovely young person, because I felt all the people around me were awful. Like, especially because I wouldn't say I was out there, but you couldn't,
people
you know,
know.
you kind of knew me, but yeah, people kind of knew me. So as soon as people heard I was pregnant, that was just talk of the town. Harriet got pregnant, and everyone was just talking. There was no offering support. There was no let me come round to your house. There was no baby shower. There was nothing like that. It was just an isolated time for me. Although I kind of decided as well that I needed it to be like that, because I didn't make the best decisions as a young person. I didn't make the best decisions as a young person in regards to the relationships I decided to make. I made those relationships because those were relationships I wanted at the time as a young person without dependence. But I feel for me, although I know it sounds so mad to say it, but I always knew the kind of parent I wanted to be. So I knew what I would have to let go if I was to go down that route. And I did, to be honest. It didn't take me long. As soon as I knew I was pregnant, by the time I went to college, oh, you're right, Harriet, I was turning the other cheek already. Getting used to being like, the reality is there was some people I'm like, you cannot be part of my parenthood. I don't want my child being influenced by, it was cool when we were young and single, but I'm not single anymore. So it's not that cool anymore, basically.
That's a lot of growth that happens at such
Yeah.
a young age, because it's like,
yeah, it was so weird because it hit me drastically. It didn't take long for me anyway to really figure out once that conversation happened that I'll talk about with my family and stuff like that, and I knew I am going to become a parent in the next 9 months. 9 months isn't a long time to fix, like,
change
to
everything.
A lot to happen.
Because by 10 months you actually have the child, so you better start putting those steps into place from now. So the growth was, it was a strange thing. I really did grow up overnight, and I feel like that's why now I feel like I have a very old soul. When people speak to me, they're like, obviously, if I've had a child young and but people are like, right, like
you come across
you just come across mad old. Like,
I had to grow up, like there was no other option.
No,
because I know before we started talking, or starting this whole podcast, that we said about your journey and some of the stuff that you wanted to put in place when you found out you was pregnant, like the whole you wanted to have your own house in time, and you said that it's so difficult because you got social services on your neck. Like, talk about some of that, like the issues that people face today as a young parent.
So I'll start off with what you were asking in regards to like how that looked like when I first kind of said I was pregnant from a cultural point of view, and then I'll go into what I then did and some of the challenges I had. So when I found out I was pregnant, I decided to tell my mum first.
Mummy, I'm gonna be a mummy too.
That giggle.
I say that because it was like two African parents. Which one do you choose? You choose. Do you know what I mean? I thought I'll choose mum. Dad is actually first. He's the first one from his household that came to the UK. So he's first generation. My mum was born in the UK. So I'm not saying she understands, but She I knew she would soften the blow. So I decided to tell her first, and basically her reaction was, that's cool, I'll support you as long as you finish your education. But she also did say, we can't tell your dad yet because Christmas is coming and please don't ruin it.
Are you serious? She was like, you ain't ruining this Christmas.
She's like, after the turkey,
not this Christmas.
EastEnders lands.
What? So so it was a bit of it was a tricky about 3 months, I guess, because I found out in like October-ish, round about now, 8 years ago. But so then found out, and then when I went to my first antenatal appointment, I did all the normal like checks and blah blah blah, and then I went home, and then when I got home, I got a call from social services to say that the midwife at that time referred me to social services because of the fact that I was 17.
Wow.
So I'm classed as a minor in the UK. And I was really hurt because obviously I was on the phone to social services thinking like, no, I think you've got the wrong person because of the fact that even if I was I was a teenage parent, but I have the support network. So for you to feel like you need to support me or get involved, I just felt was really challenging for me to understand. But the reality is they refused to change what they decided they wanted to do. And I don't know what the midwife saw that she felt she needed to get other people involved. But either way, that's how that went.
Wow.
So when that came about, that was basically a battle for about 8 months, by the way, because I decided I was going to get a lawyer to get them out of my child's life, because I had a social worker for me and a social worker for the unborn child, because we're both minors. And they had already decided that they were going to be in my life until my daughter was 1. So what we say, like 2 years before I even had a chance to see how we can do this.
And they didn't even consult you, did they?
No, they didn't consult me. No. They didn't consult me. So yeah, that's just.
Is that like a standard thing?
So in the UK, you do well. I don't want to say it's standard, but like I said, I still hear it. Like people coming to me to say social services has got involved. And I believe personally, sometimes it is a cultural thing. They've seen a black young girl, maybe I went to the antenatal point with my mum, maybe they even presume she don't speak English. You understand? Like, they just already assume that, this one is just going to be a problem before it becomes a problem. I understand, because it's all a cycle. If for example, I was from a dysfunctional home, it's a cycle, because then the child then ends up in issue. I do understand the precautions you put into place, but for you to decide already you want to be in there for 2 years, you're overdoing it now. See me once and leave, which they refuse to do. But anyway, so social services were then involved, and then I was also studying. I was also at college then as well. So I was in my second year of A-levels. Social services advised that I go into a hostel for the time being. So I thought that was a good idea at the time, because I thought they were trying to support me. And then I also was working part-time. I was just doing like retail and stuff like that. So those were the main priorities for me at the time. And then what was your question? Because
I got stuck on one point. The point I was trying to make is like you was set on the mindset of like you need to make sure you have your own place. But I want to understand, why did they recommend the hostel?
So they recommended the hostel because little did I know they were trying to put me into a baby and mother's unit. So the next step most of the time because if you're in a hostel, it's classed as homeless accommodation. I think that's the title for places like that. So the next step for people, and they know a lot of homeless accommodations are for single people, licensed for single people. So they knew as soon as that baby was born, if I didn't find an alternative, and social services were involved still. Straight, that was for me. There wouldn't have been, and then if I was to then refuse or try and argue, it'll make me look bad.
So they've got it. They had it set in place.
So they had it. So when and that was the reason why I started getting a lawyer involved and stuff like that. Because when I started clocking on as to what they were gonna do, I thought, nah, this can't be it. Because like I said, I already had this idea of what kind of parent I wanted to be, where I wanted to bring my child into this world. I know there are a lot of people that are reluctant to have children because they want to make more money, they want to do this, they want to do that. But I feel like you have to have I think it's just good to have a good headspace and a good foundation as to just generally what kind of parent you be, with money, without money, with home, without home, blah 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 blah. And I kind of had an idea of what that looks like, and to be honest, what they were trying to plan for me wasn't what that looked like. So it was a battle.
So you got a lawyer, fought the case, and everything was kind of resolved by the time you gave birth to.
And it was random because I just happened to just walk in. I don't even know if it's still there. Some random law firm, because I was stressed one day.
I wouldn't even know what to do. Like, someone was like,
just walking around. Your law firm. Help me.
Because there's ones where you watch it on like Judge Judy. When you were young or something. So I thought, I watch this all the time. They just go to, like legal services or whatever, innit, and just go in. So I thought, I was stressed one day. They were just talking rubbish to me, and I was just stressed. So I thought, you know what? Let me walk in and see what will happen.
See what they say.
And then I walked in, and I was just, I basically did do that. I was just basically like, I need a lawyer because social services. I don't even know how I worded it, but like, won't leave me alone. So can you help me? And then straight away she was like, oh yeah, fine, we'll call you, we'll consult with you next week, and this is what you need to do. How old are you? And because I was still classed as a minor. It was all free as well, so I didn't have to pay.
That,
I didn't have to. It's not. Again, I didn't know about that. I didn't think about that loophole. Yeah. So even to be honest, if they was gonna start saying I need to pay money, maybe I would have thought a little bit more. But
part-time work, 25 hours. Hey, I don't know if I could do this, you know.
Yeah. But thankfully, yeah, I went in by myself. I asked some questions, and then I was being represented, and it was just it was so silly because basically everything I was saying to social services, the lawyer was saying anyway. But because it came with, the title law firm, you need to reply within 28 days. All of a sudden they know how to respond.
So they can write.
But when I was asking, can you just give me the title? Can you tell me what the hell you're doing in my life? Nah,
they were doing the most.
I can't hear you, Harriet. Sorry,
Yeah. Oh, I got lawyers. Oh, well, now you understand English, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's a crazy start to it, and I guess my follow-up question is, in a more sort of broader sense, what was parenthood like in that initial beginning? You've given birth, you got a lovely, beautiful baby, you're a mum. Like, what is that like? Like, because I hear so many people talking about it, and they're like, you know what, it's beautiful, but it is stressful. They talk about the reality, and I think now I speak to a lot of people who they see the cute babies on Instagram. Oh, I can't wait to have 5 kids running around a little team. But I'm like, have you really thought about the cost of childcare, eating, food, Pampers, like the reality of it, like the stuff? I really want you to go into what people need to hear, not what they like to see.
Firstly, I think it's the notion, like you said, this cute little wonderful baby that I've just been born. The reality for me was I had been through so much pressure for 9 months. I haven't even told you about like the whole, when I even finally had my daughter was actually had to come early. She had to be delivered early because of the pressure, the stress. Like, if you want to see my medical records, they were even like, you're 18 years old. This is like something, the issues you're dealing with medically is like something we see from a 40-year-old woman.
Wow.
Damn. So the pressure was just so much. And then, so my daughter was delivered early, and then I was also in intensive care. So this bundle of joy, there was nothing joyful, unfortunately. Although I had, like I just mentioned, I had what I wanted to be as a parent. But the reality is I was in so much pain, physically and mentally. It was, for the child to then come was just like, it was just random. Like, I know I had planned it for like 9 months, but she came early as well. So I didn't even that little time that I would have wanted to kind of prepare for that, I didn't have. And then even when I was in hospital, when I was supposed to be like preparing myself to like calm down and start getting back into the real world again, because I kept on thinking, like overthinking and stuff like that. That was why I was in hospital for 2 months as well, because I didn't. That's
your brain's just going.
So although I was like, I'm calm. I'm like, my blood pressure wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
So the reality is the doctors just didn't discharge me. They were like, we cannot send you home like this. Although you're saying you're the way you're looking there, you're looking. I'm there like, I'm calm. I'm alright. My heart rate was all pumping. They're like, we can't. We physically. But the thing is, my daughter, like you said, the bundle of joy, she was fine. They told my mum, if you want to take her home, you can.
But not just. So they know their stuff. They've seen this all the time, so they know that when they tell you need to chill. You need to chill. You need to chill.
Hard because I remember you saying that at that time you was finishing college, wasn't you? Like you had 2 certifications like coming through.
So I was.
And you were trying to deal with that.
So just.
Or you couldn't really.
Just before, I think uni finished college. College finishes around June, and my daughter was born in August. So I just more or less finished. God works in miraculous ways where it just kind of just panned out in some sort of strange right way.
Like, not now.
In a couple months. So I had done all my A levels, and I just assumed that I'll get my certificates when they come. And then when I then finished, I realized that one of the examining boards didn't send the certificate to, I think did they send it to university or something? I don't know what happened.
You pick up it.
You pick it up and then you take it or something like that. So when I then got discharged, I went to my college to go and pick up the certificates, and there wasn't all of them.
Yeah, you're
So-
like 1, 2.
yeah.
Where's the rest?
So then I realized, and then they were like, oh, we haven't got whatever one it was. You need to call the examining board. But
Yeah.
obviously, you know how these things go. For you to get to uni, you need
yeah.
that straight away. They're not gonna. You can't be like, oh, give me 5. You know, can you give
Yeah,
me about
we'll give you-
5
5
days?
work
for
Give
me
you a
to-
couple days, yeah.
You know, so
They
the
ain't trying to
reality
hear
is,
it.
they were just basically like, you know, I got declined from the university I wanted to go to, and I had to go through clearing and just go to one that would accept me. But I was determined. I had already decided during that time when I was in hospital that I was going to still go to university. I was also the one of the last cohort to have that, the 6, the 3K.
Yeah.
I was one of the last cohort. I didn't think of it then, but now I'm like,
You're like,
that
woo!
was a good
got a
idea.
good boy.
That was a good idea.
10K now.
Yes, smart.
And I guess now that I'm in the position I am in now as well, I rate the fact that my parents, although I felt it was harsh at the time, like, how are you not going to support your daughter if she doesn't finish her education?
Yeah.
Like, I even contemplate, maybe I should just get disowned. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just stressful. But I rate the fact that they were like, nah, finish.
Yeah,
So
anything.
I finished the A-levels, and by the time I finished the A-levels, university didn't feel so difficult, because especially because it's so much more focused.
Yeah.
So although my baby was only 6 weeks old at the time, my parents said they would support me as long as I finished my education. So thankfully, I picked them up on that offer, and I was like, so you're looking after the baby,
babysitting, yeah? Every day, yeah?
To go to, so,
And my mum and dad were good. Like, they used to drive to uni every day with the baby.
bless them.
You know, my dad was even, African dad on nappy duties, everything.
Yeah?
Yes, they did
Hey.
everything. They did not play around with what they promised.
Yeah.
That's
Because in
their
the moment
grandchild.
when I was doing A-levels and they said they'll support, I thought, you're not really giving me support, because I'm here studying. I don't see anyone helping me.
Yeah.
But all that practical support, it does make a difference when... I don't want to say I would really push for people to finish their education even if you do have a baby, etc. But it is, I can only say it was a bit easier because of the fact that I did have that support network, and I couldn't think of what I would have done if that wasn't the case.
And I think it's an important thing to have in any aspect, whether that's family, close friends, or some other support, where, because I know there's cases now where a lot of parents, sometimes single mothers and fathers, will like meet at a community center and just share stories about what they've learned about being a parent, tips and tricks. And it's just good to be in a space where that person's going through what I'm going through.
Yeah.
I can call this person at any time. I think it's just really important. And especially when it's your parents.
Yeah.
Who better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who better? So that's it's good to hear, especially with African parents, because like I know quite a few people who they got pregnant at 19.
And they just got thrown
Get
out
out
the
my
house.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust.
And I'm like, that's your
Yeah.
daughter. Get out. We don't want to
Yeah.
hear it. We don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you see the turnaround in like 1 or 2 years' time. Where's my grandchild?
Yeah.
Where's little
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Michael, you're dance for
Trust
granddad.
me.
And they start
Trust
shaking the key.
me.
Michael's like,
Give me the key.
yeah. I'm like, but you were the one like a year ago.
Yeah.
But it is just interesting
Listen,
to see
it was
how
so awkward.
that
The
pans
first
out.
conversation that my dad had when we finally told him after Turkey was, so we didn't teach you about condoms. I thought,
Wow.
I thought,
Dad, not even.
Daddy,
How are you?
When you the one that's supposed to?
I thought, Dad, you didn't even teach me about boys.
Yeah,
Like, what are you on about? Do you understand? You know when you're just like, you feel to be like, are you dumb or you mad to your own father?
Are you
Do you know what I
okay?
mean?
Like, bro.
Yeah, like, what, you know, those ones, I'm
Is
just
that
like,
the best you could come
yeah,
out with?
like,
I
No,
don't
you
know.
know what? And it's interesting because, again, before we started recording, you mentioned like a really interesting point, and that because it's something that I've noticed as well in the UK and Western society generally, there's that high rate of teenage pregnancies. And what was the point you mentioned about? Was it in Scandinavia where they're a bit more liberal and open about the conversations around sexual education and teaching kids about those lessons? Can you just kind of go on that a bit, please,
Yeah,
as well?
so I would say in the UK we are a little bit behind in regards to those sort of conversations around sex education and relationships. In Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Finland and Amsterdam, they have these conversations a lot earlier, and it's not to teach children to have sex, it's to teach children of the reality of health, what a healthy relationship looks like,
Yes.
how to protect yourself, what sex even involves, and not just from a scientific point of view. I think in the UK, we're very theoretical. So we teach all that, you know, science and English and maths, and we know it from all those perspectives. But the reality is it doesn't take science, English and maths to make children. It actually takes knowing the social aspects to make children, and also knowing, having having healthy relationships to also have a supportive network, so you raise children. So you know, it's I'm not saying this is the fundamental, like you would never know if you're going to be a single parent or not, but it may be, even for you to decide on what sort of person you want to co-parent with, it may be a little bit more helpful if you can understand what a healthy relationship looks like and what an unhealthy relationship looks like. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, oh yeah, the people that knew what healthy relationships looked like and went into an unhealthy relationship made a mistake. It's not to say that, but I feel like those are just I think, yes, conversations that should happen, so people can just be able to make it's a life decision, isn't it?
It is. It's a big thing.
We're talking about like it's not,
big.
you know,
it's big.
it's a life decision. But
can they dance around it, don't they, in school? Because I think we were talking earlier, I only did 2 sexual education classes.
I did 1.
And I look at America and they have like the condom and they put
cucumber
and everything like that. And we're like, we just watch a TV program and it's like you were saying a cartoon and
it seems like it's just, I think it's also linked to British culture as well, like we're quite awkward here. Or sex or money. Well, I don't want to talk about that.
You're too young,
but why not? These are everyday conversations that we should be having. Like, we use money every day.
I just feel like it's just a weird one, because a lot, you know, let's be real in regards to advertisements and stuff like that, it's getting so much more sexualized.
Oh man, it's bad.
But the UK don't want to have those conversations. But the reality is, if you're going to be sexual, if you're going to have you know, things like that are a bit more sexualized in different countries, at least they're having those conversations. You can't be saying that, oh yeah, I don't want my children to be sexualized and when it's all over the TV anyway.
It's happening. Like,
so wouldn't it make sense for it to correlate as opposed to they're just seen on TV, you know, like even daytime TV sometimes I'm like, what?
It's a bit much. There was a show on Channel 4, there was one about rape me, something, people were going in like naked and you had to rate their body.
Oh, that TV show.
And there was there's some really,
look, like a dating show and like they have like 4 people and they show different parts. Like, oh, look at his legs. Oh yeah,
I like a bit of that. Yeah, that's lovely, treacle. And it's just when I'm like, but we're doing it now. Why aren't we having the conversations? And again, we spoke about this before, and this is something that I don't know how I'm going to navigate around this as a parent, in that kids are learning more and more about this from external sources anyway. So how do we kind of generate and garner those conversations? Because I've got little cousins around me talking about, they banged. Where are you hearing this from? And I'm thinking, as a parent, if I do hear my child at 5, 6 or 7 say, Dad, what are those elephants doing? Or what are those lions doing? What am I going to say? I can't turn the TV off. I can't really, there has to be that point of,
could turn it off.
But I want to be,
go upstairs.
I want to be able to be open and have those conversations in a healthy way. So not saying, you get your thing, ram it in there, fam. You what? But have those healthy conversations with that young child so they understand what's going on, and that they can recognize a healthy relationship when an unhealthy relationship. So when an uncle is touching them inappropriately, or an auntie's grooming them inappropriately, they understand and they're not thinking.
Or when they're being groomed, do you remember I said it by their peers?
That's the thing.
Child on child, a lot of them grooming. You know, a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. It sounds awful, but
it's reality. It's reality, because how can they tell the difference between right and wrong? They don't even know what is going on. And I know you mentioned a video on YouTube. I forgot what you said it was called.
Mummy laid an egg.
Mummy laid an egg.
Mummy laid an egg.
Mummy laid an egg. But it's obviously, that's like a good example of, I guess, content material that shows and explains the concept of what's going on, so they can understand it and really recognize and say, Mom, I really like that, but uncle or auntie does that to me, or my teacher does that, or my friend at school. Oh, okay, cool, tell us more. Where did you learn this from? When have they done this? How many times? Let's go into it. And I guess that would work towards potentially reducing those teenage pregnancies or whatever the case may be, or just, I guess, increasing awareness of those situations. And
I think it's like those ones where I'm not even, it's hard for me to be against teenage pregnancy because that's my reality. But I feel like it's about the relationships. It's about knowing a healthy relationship, not becoming a teenage parent to a man who's 40. Do you understand? Those are the difficult. Or sometimes in regards to social services, this is the reason why I do understand why sometimes social services do get involved. I do hear from teenage parents where they're in DV. They have, you know, a guy that's a shotter, a guy that's on the street, roadman. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And the reality is, social services will tell you to choose roadman or choose your baby.
Yeah.
For me, it makes
Really?
sense. Yeah. For me, it
Yo.
makes sense. And some of these people want to choose roadman.
Eh?
But the reality is, you bring roadman and baby together, it's going to be a problem. If he's already battering you at home, what do you think he's going to do when baby comes?
That's a movie script right there, man. That's
It's
top boy.
life. It's
You
not even
know?
a movie script.
Yeah.
It actually,
So for me, if you want to have children at 17 as well, I
Just
feel like
understand
there is
it's
there is, I still say, and I think I was saying it to you, I feel like there are still things to do before you have a child at 17, and those are the conversations I say to young people I talk to, and also I would say to my daughter. But if you really feel you need to, it's about age appropriate. All these big man when you're a little child, it's a problem. Or big woman when you're a young boy, it's a problem. Whatever way you want to see it, but I love her. You're 14, she's 40. I'm not
Which love?
understanding.
turn the numbers around.
It's just a problem, you know. So it's that aspect and understanding what looks alright, what doesn't. And a lot of the time, a lot of these things come out of the fact that some of these children have been sexually assaulted from a young age. You know, when you read the statistics as to why some people get into quite difficult or challenging relationships later on in life, it doesn't come out of nowhere.
It's childhood
There's a root
experiences.
cause.
it's
Childhood
trauma,
experiences.
so-
Maybe if mum and dad were doing that in the house, all of it doesn't just
It's
come out
learned
of
behaviour,
Yeah.
And it's also about us learning some of the things, like some of the traumas we may have had as young people or in childhood ourselves, so we can try and eliminate that bringing up, or I want to eliminate that bringing up my daughter too.
Yeah,
you know?
so instead of it being a cycle,
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah,
nip it
kinda
in the
break
bud
it.
because you identify what the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important thing because I think on that question of like Ola saying like stopping teenage pregnancy, I think there is an angle of it where for some people that might be the best thing for them, as long as they're in a healthy, good relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thing. Like a lot of the education that comes along with the sexual education that we get in schools, it is the science of it, but it's not talking about good relationship. And this is what happens, or it should be a step. If you're going to have sex, it's a step that should happen if you're feeling comfortable with the person, age appropriate, all the other levels.
All those other things that we don't talk about. That's the issue. And also the reality is in the Black and Asian community, we tend to have children younger anyway. The statistics are, in regards to like the Caucasians, they tend to have children a lot older. Basically, their first child is a lot older anyway.
Why
So
is that?
I never knew that.
I didn't. That's quite interesting.
it might. I don't know if it's just
Cultural thing.
cultural. Yeah, I
number
think
of
it's a
factors,
cultural
okay.
thing. Sometimes it's a religious thing, stuff like
Okay,
that.
probably a number of factors.
So again, it's if we are in multicultural London, it makes sense to have those conversations. So even if, for example, in my culture or whatever culture, I have children at 7. All of us, all my mum and dad and my cousins, all of us had children at 16. Not a problem.
That's just part of
But
culture, yeah.
let's talk about how that's come around, you know, and then it goes into things, you know, arranged marriage isn't just a joke. These things are still happening, you know, and maybe it made sense in certain societies, but in different societies, it may not be. I don't even want to say it doesn't make sense, because there are people that still do it and it makes sense, but as long as it's healthy. And I think those are the conversations. And again, I'm not against people having those conversations from a cultural, religious point of view, but as long as those conversations are happening, not just wake up, get married, or don't even get married, have some baby, and then they're confused. I'm 14 with a baby and I don't know what to do.
You know what? There's two things I've picked up from a lot of what you said. Two main things. One is communication, so speaking about a lot of different aspects and raising awareness. And two, healthy. That word has kind of come up quite a lot. And I think that is the bedrock of this conversation. And it's so important to emphasize on the importance of healthy relationships. Sex is a part of life. Relationships, having children, that's a part of life. But it's about that healthy aspect of it. Not having it at the wrong age or the wrong time, or in a wrong toxic relationship with that roadman who's going to be physically abusive, and you might have the fear to leave, but having that understanding of what it means to be in a healthy relationship. So obviously we've spoken about the sex aspect and being a parent young, but there's also that kind of talk of healthy relationships in and of itself. So I think, not to kind of go off on a tangent, but there's that discussion of toxic relationships as well. So they might not be physically abusive, but there's emotional,
financial.
There's other ways of someone being abusive and people not fully being aware. And it links to people's parents as well.
Yeah.
Because if you've grown up in a household where mum and dad are physical every day, dad's calling mum a useless bee, mum's calling dad a piece of whatever.
Yeah.
You growing up, you might look for that, or
Yeah.
you might see, but that's normal.
Yeah, it's comforting.
That's your understanding of, no, this is normal. I want this.
And you've seen how your parents navigated it, so you're like, I know how to navigate the abusive man. It's not. It could be worse, you know.
Because I used to see people in those sort of relationships, and they used to be, I don't know what to do. I used to be like,
how did they get there?
I'm like, I don't understand. Like you've gone out your way to be in this situation, and obviously at the time I was naive. I didn't understand. I'm like, but why?
You
can leave. This guy or this person has offered something healthier, something cleaner, something more PG, and you still decided to be like, actually no. But then having had that conversation, it's like, actually that was your reality as a child. You grew up with that. That's your norm. Like you said, you know how to navigate that. You don't flowers. Why is this guy giving me flowers? Don't kiss me. Well, I'm confused. Are you hurting me? What's going on? And you just kind of get that understanding and that healthy relationship. And it's interesting because I think it's important to teach the younger generation and children as parents as well the importance of that kind of healthy thing, that healthy aspect. And it seems like there's a lot to being a parent. From what I'm hearing. No, I mean, it seems like there's a lot. Like, obviously, it's all good and well.
Read the book, son.
It's all good and well when they're hugging you and it's all good. But yeah, it's that point of there's no manual to being a parenthood.
There is no manual.
There's no manual to raising kids, and you just kind of do it yourself.
Yeah.
Winging it.
Fake
it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. But not to. I don't want to say negative. But what has been some of the more challenging aspects for you? So what has there been times when you're just like, man, can I do this? This is a lot. Because I hear a lot of parents who do talk about that side of life.
I'm sure if I ask my mum and my dad, they probably have moments like that.
They're like, oh, Anton, you know what? Now that you've asked me, I don't even want to see your face. Like, it's all coming back. It's all coming back. Because I try and have those conversations with my parents to kind of see. Because I'm like, honestly, what was it like raising me? What was I like as a boy, kind of thing. They always, no. You know what? They kiss their teeth. My mum, the first time I asked her, I laughed because she just walked out the room. She like, this guy. I'm like, no, mum, what was that? She was like, you know what? Times were stressful. There were times when you guys are sick and we're just scared we're gonna lose you. Like you're sick, you're barely moving. We're scared we're gonna lose you. There's times when you just weren't listening. You were stubborn. We leave you in your cot. We come in the morning. This guy's gone. We're thinking we've been kidnapped. I'm in the kitchen apparently eating Wotsits. They don't know how I've got on the counter. I'm doing a madness. But then they always speak about the good times when your kids come up to you and just hug you without you even asking. And it's like the times when they make you laugh and they make you smile and the joy of it as well. So there's obviously that balance of the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, and just kind of raising a child and seeing them grow and just being like, man, you were in my tummy, you were like in nappies, now you're graduating, and it's like, it's a beautiful view. You're just looking out there like, oh my god. Like,
I'm just scared. I'm daydreaming because I'm like, because next year I have to start thinking of secondary school.
Wow.
And that's the big one.
Damn.
And I don't know how that. Like, I know, and this is the funny thing. When I was young and I heard people like, oh, I can't believe my son is, and I'll be like,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna like, they grow up, like, stop being dumb. But now that I'm there, I am that mum. Like, how have we got to this point? Like, to be honest.
Do you feel it's flown past? Because that's the one thing I consistently hear parents say, that time flies so quick.
It's so strange because when she was 5 and under, it was so slow. Like,
you're like,
it just
bro,
felt
man.
like you were a baby forever. But it was also the most enjoyable years. Like, I loved it so much because they just, they're not their own person yet. They're so cute. They just love to spend time with you. They're just, it's just so great. Like, you just take them places. You don't need to bother to take them home early because they don't have school in the morning. Like, all that stuff, innit? Like, me personally, those are the years from about 6 months to 5. I loved those years.
And then school starts, you're like, oh.
And then
school runs.
And breathe.
Then they turn 6.
Boy.
And then
Uh-oh.
they change. They change. Like, they start asking you about things that you're not ready for.
Why?
They come home with all these ideas from school that you have to start trying to mold, You
have to understand
that first.
Where it's coming from, and trying to figure out what's the best way to explain what that is. They're going through moods of their own. in regards to friendship groups, it's so important to them
Oh,
at
yeah,
that
yeah,
age
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
You know, Molly's not talking to me, and it's a big deal.
and it's serious.
Do you
innit?
understand? It's not
You got to go talk to Molly's mum, innit?
You
It
can't
gets
just
serious.
be leaving Molly's not talking to me, so you have to listen to, and sometimes and they talk a lot as well, so you have to
man.
listen to all the Mollies, the
man.
Barbara, the
you have to keep
Charlotte,
account of all the
yeah,
friends
and then
as
sometimes
well.
you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I swear, last week best friend,
Yeah.
you know, anyway.
I thought you hated Molly.
All right,
No, I love
cool.
Molly. She's my best friend.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
Do you know how funny? I was thinking Molly's name as well. That's how weird it is. When you said Molly, I was like, what are you in my brain? Oh, man. Because I was thinking about it the other day. Like, I'm not a parent, but I was driving home one day and I was driving back to my mum's house. And I was thinking to myself, once upon a time, I was a small baby.
Yeah.
I fitted in my mum's arms or whatever. And now I'm this tall 6'2" guy. And I'm like, Mum, deep voice and everything. She must look at me and be like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
You know, from this moment of being a baby to being a grown adult.
Yeah.
And it's scary. And I think I was having a conversation with my mum last week. And she was explaining about one of her friends, and she's got 2 sons. One's 21, one's 25. They still live at home, both very baby. And they've been complaining because mum don't cook, mum don't do anything. And my mum's like, like, let them cook for themselves, like they're grown men. And I was like, Mum, but like, what happens? Like, there's a transition that happens, right? When you become certain ages. She was like, you get to a point where, for me, I wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And Mum said that was a challenge. Like, having to let go and be like, all right, cool. You want to wear that? You have to wear that.
Yeah.
You want to wear those? Oh, you want to go out at this time? And then
Go.
now she's like, oh, if you want to leave, I'm not asking questions. You know, oh, where you going? What time you coming home? Like, there's so many transitions that probably does happen.
And you know, empty
nest
nest
syndrome.
syndrome. It's a real thing, and it happens at every stage, I think, because the reality is you can decide to hinder them. You know, my daughter's trying to put on her jacket. Should I just put it on for her? Or should I just let her do it? And although people don't see that as the next step, you need that if she wants to put on the jacket by herself, let her put the jacket. If she wants to put the shoes on, and she said it, I want to put my shoes on. That in itself, she's saying, Mom, I'm going to the next stage. And you also need to be kind of adaptable to that as well. So they
That's
can.
deep,
so
man.
like you said, so you don't end up. Me personally, I don't really want to end up with a child that's, you know, can basically cook, and I'm still having to do. Don't get me wrong, I'll feed you, but you know, there's certain things. I'm trying to build up independence because I see there is a lot of value in that.
Yes.
So the only way to do that is when you see them transitioning to the next step, you help them along the way. But don't get me wrong, there are some children that don't transition. I don't know those boys personally, so maybe they are just a bit slow, like not slow like that, but like they're you know, maybe. Don't send for me. Like, don't send for me.
Like, why did she say that? Why did she say that for?
We're slow.
Like I was saying, but you just need to let them let children kind of go along that journey as they want to, and provide that support when they can, because there are some children by 10, you know, they can start walking to school by themselves or something. Do you understand? Sometimes I'm like, raw, like when I watch some of these kids, but you can tell she's like, there's some girl, you can see that she knows it left, right, you know, she knows how to cross the road, but then there's others that the same age struggling.
You gotta hold
do you understand?
them. Should we cross now? No, there's a lorry, it's a red light. No,
do you understand?
No, put your shoes on. Like,
so I'm not even saying slow in that sense, but they're just not there in regards to their development.
Yeah.
And
I
those
get
sort
it.
of parents they need more support. So
You just adjust.
Although it is, in moments like that, it can feel a bit long, especially if you're kind of trying to get on with your life. If you've also got stuff to do, you want to just start, working
You gotta move on,
time or whatever.
Yeah.
And my man is still trying to tie his shoelaces.
Even though it's
at
the
18
strap,
or
the
something.
strap.
Do you get it? Like
18. I can do it, mummy. Put the left one
is
in
it the hoop through there or do you get
And
They're shoeless. Come on, they're laceless. But you know what? You're so right, because I remember we took my brother's 18 going on 19. I remember we took him to university. So 19 now. We took him to university, and I just remember like my mum was bawling. Like she was probably like, we were like.
She didn't do that for you, innit?
I'm like, you didn't cry, you guys never. But I think, and I noticed it because when it was me, I went up by myself. I remember no one took me up. I had to go up with the gun on my skull bags on the train. I'm like, sorry, is that your fault? I'm so sorry. I was there on my ones, but my
Yeah.
brother is like, maybe because he's the youngest, I'm not sure.
I think the youngest.
I
do
think,
that.
yeah.
But parents do know, you know.
They
Although
know.
sometimes
I
I'm
think-
like, although some of the things that my parents did, I felt was harsh. They kind of knew. Like I was middle born, I was the first daughter. They kind of knew I was gonna get on with it. That's the reason why. And then there's certain things that they may not do for my younger sister because they also know her.
Yeah.
And I think it is about knowing your children.
child.
Do you
And
understand? In the
adjusting,
moment,
yeah.
I feel like if it was like punishment, like so I'm here having to get on tube
Thank
to
you.
just go.
Say it
and this one
louder.
is taking a chauffeur. You know?
Uber. Uber X.
You get it? But then at the same time, now that I have a child of my own, I'm like, you know what? All children are different, and I can't compare my child to Molly at school because
Yeah.
Molly's going to be doing something different to what my child is doing. And I just
Shout
have
out
to
Molly, though.
I have to focus on my own, you know.
And it's interesting because like some parents are like, so my mum used to say to me, "Is like you'll see once you have a kid."
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
why? Like,
Yeah.
she'll make me do something. I'm like, why are you making me do this? You'll see when you have a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, what sort of answer is that? Explain.
Yeah.
But I think I get it now.
Yeah.
You know, once I become a parent and I'm raising a kid, like you're saying, and you're realizing that your kid is capable of so much more.
Yeah.
And all right, cool. You might start taking off that, you know, the bubble wrap around and be like, go on.
Yeah.
Like I was walking
Yeah.
to school when I was 10 years old.
Yeah. See.
I remember
Yeah.
cooking when I was like 11.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember burning down the house when I was like 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like all these little things. I was ironing my school clothes when I was in year 5. So I was like
Yeah.
9 years old,
Yeah.
Boy.
10.
I remember
And I'm
those
like,
ones.
Mum, why? You will see when.
Yeah.
It's all skills. No, it's all valuable skills. Like you said, they're valuable skills that take you into adulthood.
Yeah.
Because when I was at university, a lot of what I'd learned throughout those years when I thought it was punishment, they just came to help.
punishment.
And I just used to see people struggling.
Yeah.
Like, oh, is this how you cook rice? True story. My man got hot
Oh,
kettle,
don't even talk to me.
poured it on the
yeah.
rice and left it there. He's like, is it ready? I'm like, are you ready for life? There was
Yeah.
glass. Someone put, he was international to be fair, he put glass in the washing machine. I don't know if he thought it was a bin, but
Maybe he thought it was a
I
dishwasher.
probably thought it was, I don't know what he thought it was. It cut up our other housemates. It cut up his shirts. They were beefing for so long, but watching people struggle to
Yeah.
cook, clean, iron for themselves and do a lot of these day-to-day things at 22,
Yeah.
21, 22, 23, big boys,
Yeah.
big men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then you get taught these skills.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was like, actually, you know what? I appreciate now the times when they were like, go and iron all those shirts, go and wash the dishes.
Some
when
of
I was
it,
missing
and I think
TV.
some of it is because of the fact that our parents didn't have any choice. There were some things that, to be honest, you need to start washing the, or
Yeah.
you need to
You need to
take
chip
your-
in. You need
you
to,
need
yeah.
to take yourself home from school because there's no one to pick you up.
That's true.
That's the
Working late.
reality. So, but I feel like there is a balance because some things I'm not just gonna put my child through things if I can help her do it just to prove just you can do it. It's independent skills or whatever else. But I think the most important thing is teaching them so that when they are ready to do that. Because don't get me wrong, you're saying ironing at a certain age. I didn't iron. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit spoiled. My dad used to iron and wash all my clothes.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
I would
like
love that,
I
you
was
know?
that person. But because my parents didn't see that as a priority for me to learn at that point. But when they realized it was a priority, they taught me so I could start having to do
They
that.
came with
You
it.
get it?
Yeah.
So I just feel like you sending your children to university and they're not living in dorms or whatever it is, or they're living in dorms. Of course, it doesn't make sense. You need to teach them at some point,
gotta know it.
or you have a year before they go
That's
there.
my brother
So
right
that's the
now.
time
Really?
to do it,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it is good to do it beforehand so they're kind of used to it. But I understand sometimes because I'm like, sometimes when I actually see childhood, it's not a long time for me to be spending bare years telling my daughter to start washing dishes.
There's other stuff that
there
you're
are
teaching
other
them as
stuff
well.
for her to do, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, because like my brother, he just started uni in Leicester, and I messaged him the other day, and he was like, "I'm struggling." I'm like, "What are you struggling with?" He's like, "I don't know how to cook," and I was like, "It's so different because I can cook, and then the youngest can cook as well." And he just got left out.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how he's managed to survive for so long.
He's like, oh, Anton's cooked. Yeah, I'll just eat it.
He just
Yeah,
got by. Like he's always had someone that's like looking out for him. And now he's just like, "Whoa, this is hard."
Yeah.
He's fine, but he's gonna learn. That's the way I look
Is
at it.
he?
He's
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah.
We hope so.
Would you? Sorry, go on. I was gonna ask, what type of parent are you? Like in terms of, are you quite strict or are you quite liberal? And I guess what type of parent would you
I
see
think
yourself?
I'm. I don't know if I would say liberal,
That's fine.
Or like in between?
but I guess I'm in between. I feel like my parenting isn't really the norm. I don't know if I want to say the norm.
I want
Like-
to know more. Yeah.
Well, from a black woman point of view, sometimes some of the things I want to take, like some of the places I want to take my daughter, some of the stuff we like to do, some of the stuff I do at home, I don't really hear it in the community personally. I'm not saying there's no one out there, but I've not met them so far.
Can you
Basically.
give us an example if you're comfortable?
Well, the biggest thing
I'm
where
in-
people
I'm
are
intrigued.
always like shocked. I don't have a TV at home.
No, I want to do that.
Yeah, I don't have a TV at
Your
home.
books.
We've never had a TV.
I
I
rate
think we
that.
had a TV once when I was at uni. I never watched it, and I told someone to come and collect it one time. And then we never had one after that, and so we're just used to not having a screen in the house. My daughter doesn't have her own iPad, her own laptop.
Yes.
I'm not against it. You know, there are people that I understand the reasons, you know, that they kind of explain to me why their children need it. But me personally, I don't feel what you can learn that at school.
Yeah.
Technology is school is so it's all full of technology now. So why do I need to teach you that at home?
Yeah.
You know, unless it's something specific, you know, like I'm putting on something specific for her to watch. And again, it's always an hour of David Attenborough, an hour
And
of
that's it.
you know, something that she specifically said, or we're having a discussion about it. We put that on today. We're watching laser cutting. So random, because I went to, I told you I did a talk last week in about technology basically, and when I went there, I made a laser. I used their resources, like their what do you call it? Something on the, you might know a bit more, like some sort of app to make some sort of laser cutting. Then the laser cutting machine made it, and I was so impressed with myself.
Like, look
But
at me.
so then I came home and showed her what I made, and she's like, "Oh, how did you make it?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll show you." So I went on YouTube because I don't know about that personally. So I went on YouTube and I showed her, and that was
Learning
just a
together
bit
as
of
well.
learning. And sometimes I might tell her to write down what she's learned from what we've discussed. And again, I feel like it's beneficial because in regards to her reading level, her understanding some of the things that they have picked up in school. I feel like it's that home learning that's
Goes that
happening
much
at
further.
home, as opposed to waiting for the school to do it. And I'm really just against that. I'm not waiting for the school to do anything. I don't really care. You know, it's good. You know, I do have a look at the curriculum just to see what's going on. But all in all, majority of what I do is because I want to do it at home. I feel like I'm the best person to teach her. And there are some things I don't know. You know, I'm not going to say I'm a mathematician.
Don't speak to that.
Don't worry
Don't
about that.
To pay bills.
Yeah.
She has to pay bills. Look at these maths.
Because like I think that's one problem that's kind of being faced right now is a lot of people have kids, but because of the demand of life, they spend a lot of time working and they're struggling to get that balance right. Because a lot of people like literally dropping their kids off to like a childminder and then picking up their kids after school. And then literally making food, and then it's bedtime. And there's not that kind of homeschooling happening. Maybe
Quality
on the weekend.
time.
But it's not like, this is what you're gonna learn from me today. Or there's none of that. And it's like, how do you get that balance right?
It's that quality time, isn't it?
It is difficult. It is difficult. I'm not gonna say it's not. But I think you just have to see it as a priority. You have to try and find some time to do it. Like even I remember I had a dedicated day. When I was working full time, where we would go to the library and we would do like little activities and those books that they sell in WH Smith and stuff like that, and go through that together. So I can actually see, I don't want the school to be saying, she can't write, and I don't know if she can write or not because I've never really seen her write. I want to be like, actually, I'm aware of this. I've seen it for myself. I can't just have people speaking to me and I'm fighting the school when I don't really know myself. But on top of that, I can't lie to you. I initially, when I first had my daughter, obviously I finished university and I had it set in my head, I'm going to go full time. Like, I've got this degree. I need to use
Might as
it.
well use it.
I saw the salary I can be on. I'm not going to lie to you and be saying, no, it'd be cute about it. Like, the baby at home. I won't figure out no baby at home because I was, I already saw what I thought I wanted to do. And I thought, I'm going to start my degree. I'm going to start my working life, put the child in childminder because she was in childminder for like about 3 years. She was in childminder for 3 years anyway. After when she got to a point where because she was, when I first had her, because she was newborn, no childminders would take her. But as soon as she was old enough to be put in a childminder, from 8 months to 2 years, she was in a childminder. And it was sad. Every time I left her, I felt so upset. But I kept on telling myself, I know why I'm doing this.
Bigger picture.
This is what I'm trying to do it. Career, pick up this, rat-tat-tat. So then anyway, I got into it for some years and I did full time in my sector. And then I just found that it was really, like you were saying, it was just difficult. I didn't have enough time in the day. I picked her up from school, put dinner on. It's already time for bed. We read, kind of read a book, but I had no, I wasn't even putting any energy into it, and all that kind of stuff. Weekend came. I'm not really on taking you to activities. I should, but I don't really want to because it's a bit long. And Saturday, I'm getting ready for Monday. So,
It's
non-stop.
yeah. But so then I decided, you know what, maybe I need to cut down my hours and do part-time. So then I decided to do part-time and then juggle the parenthood thing. And it was a little bit easier because I had those 2 days to do mum and to do everything else I felt I needed to do. And then those 3 days when I was working. And that was a little bit easier to juggle. But I guess because of the fact that I also wanted to do this business, it then just felt like full-time. It felt like the same thing, It didn't, like, although I thought, I'll cut down the hours, I was still doing the same hours.
Work,
So then I was like, and then I think the momentous moment for me, although it's not a nice thing to have to discuss or talk about, was last year my daughter actually got racially abused at school. And it was, to be honest, I think it was a reality, what do you call, like a
Reality check.
Yeah, a bit of a reality check for me. Because like I said, I had this idea of the parent I wanted to be, the career I wanted to have, the money I wanted to make. But it really got me back to, you know what? I thank God because I had these conversations about race with her by like at 5. I had already talked to her about racial identity, and she told me about the incident because of the fact that we'd had that conversation at home. And again, it's back to the home education. And I feel like whatever, even if you feel like you don't have enough time in the day, even 1 hour on a Saturday at some point, have those home education
like
moments.
You were saying about communication.
And I'm so happy I had it, even though I was so tired when I was doing all those hours. I'm happy we had those conversations because I wasn't preparing for her to be racially abused at school by 7, but she was. And then it got me really thinking that, you know what, especially with the way the education system's going, I need to spend a bit more time being on the ground, especially with this whole Brexit and everyone's the enemy now, and we're living in London. London used to be a nice place, but it's not that anymore. So I feel like that conversation came from a reality I'm not making excuses for these kids, but it came from a reality of maybe some of the political issues that are happening in society. So those children are coming to school with those same mentality, and I don't really care for those kids, but I care for my own child. I don't want her to ever feel like she's a victim. And also at the time, the school had never heard of anything racially related.
Well, we're
because,
not aware of anything, no.
Because I live in a predominant,
Molly's
I literally live with Mollies. Like I live in a predominantly white area. So,
Shout out the Mollies.
they just don't know. They didn't really know what to do. So, at the time I was working, and then my contract was coming to an end, and I was thinking, should I get a new job? Should I not? And I was like, I can't do that especially because of the fact that the school hadn't given me an answer as to how my child had reported being racially abused, and no one did anything about it. She's coming home to tell me, and now I'm also saying, all right, something needs to happen. And the school were just sort of like, we have spoken to kids, it's all right now. It wasn't good enough for me. And it consumed me. And although it wasn't it was a very challenging time for me, it really got me thinking of, actually, this is the child that I'm trying to shape for the future. And if I'm just spending all my time, work, hustle, and I'm trying to tell myself I'm doing it all because I'm trying to build a future for her, but I haven't actually built her into a confident young woman, I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to her. That's the way I see it. I'm not saying your child, you are an individual. I'm not saying your children need to...
You're preparing them for the future.
Consume your whole life, but I feel like if I didn't go and fight for her, it would have had a knock-on effect on the way she would see herself in the future.
Because if it happens again, then she's going to feel like no one listens.
So I decided at that point I wasn't going to continue with my contract. My contract had finished. I wasn't going to find anything else. And to be honest, I wanted to push my personal business anyway. And it felt like the right time, because I was like, I've been moaning about this whole flexibility thing anyway. So actually, the only way I can carve out flexibility is for me to actually, unless I'm planning to, and I'm not gonna lie, at the time I was slightly trying to think maybe I should just homeschool her, because the fight went on throughout the year basically.
Whoa.
And it was she started a new school as well, so I was even more upset. I took her from a school that was multicultural, and I felt like an idiot to a predominantly white school.
Made the wrong choice,
and I just thought to myself, and this is it again, if there were parents trying to find the perfect school, the perfect this, the perfect money, the perfect job, it's not there. You have to know your child, you have to know yourself, you have to know your circumstances, you have to know all this and carve out whatever that means to you. And I guess in our old school, in regards to cultural aspects, they were perfect in
Everyone's
that.
The same,
everyone's different. It would be hard to find Charlotte because everyone was a mixture of everything. Do you understand? And it was the only school in the area I'm living in that was multicultural like that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go down. 2, it was closest to my house too. And again, because I was focusing on this job, blah blah blah. It was all to fit into my life, really. So that worked out. But then, unfortunately, when she went into the new year, they didn't have they didn't have a teacher for her. So I was like, yeah, you know what? This school ain't doing great. It weren't doing great anyway, but I was still holding on to, I love this school. It's so nice. Like, I can just talk to, Somali community.
Come
this is
on.
great. Like, I didn't know about, pancake and banana. I'm down. Yeah, like, I loved all that. It was brilliant. But the reality is, in regards to her education, I was like, she's not going to get what I need her to get. And she was also going into junior school. I don't personally put a lot of emphasis on primary education, because I personally feel like it's all about learning through play. But the reality is, by the time they go into junior school, it's preparing them for secondary school. So there's certain things that just it doesn't make sense. Watching YouTube videos at school don't make sense anymore when they're going into another transition in their life. So I decided to then move her to this other school, which was half an hour away from the house, firstly. So in regards to when you're talking about catchment, it wasn't in my catchment. And secondly, it was predominantly white. And I thought, but when I went there in regards to like the education aspects, it was top of the range. They're doing a lot of things. Ofsted rating. They do swimming. They do, they have swimming pool in the school. They have instrument in the school. They have, do you understand all that? But again,
serious,
I was getting, I weren't really seeing the bigger picture until that incident happened, where I was like, there is no perfect school. And you have to decide what is more important to you and what you feel you can be able to teach. If for example, I feel like if as a parent, you're into math. So for example, if as a parent, actually I could teach the math aspect. So actually I want my child to get the cultural aspect from school, depending on where you live. Maybe you would pick a school that has more of the cultural aspects, because you can do the education at home. Yeah. But me personally, I'm not, I can do education to an extent, but not
not all the way.
Not all the way.
You handle that school.
It just got me to the reality of, I just need to continue doing that home education in regards to the cultural aspects, in regards to who you want to be, in regards to you as a person. All these conversations, although I laughed at, all these conversations about best friend and not best friend, these are things that mold you into who you become. If you're bullied, the reality of if you end up being an adult that gets bullied in the workplace, if you're someone that's used to being discriminated, although we see it as just little child play, just kids running around and stuff like that, these are, for me, when I decided that was so important, and the only way, not the only way, but I felt I needed to be a little bit more on the ground, hearing these conversations, in order for me to nip it in the bud before she gets to secondary school, or in time for her to get to the next step in her life. Because if I kind of just continue down the route of just working full time, like you said, most days she just goes straight to bed. So at what point would she have had that conversation with me?
Yeah.
It really got me worried, where I was like, if I'm not really there, I am there, but I'm not, or I'm too tired to actually understand what's going on, I could lose that moment.
You're not picking up those sort of things that's happening to your child's life in that moment. Because life has got you. And I'm also genuinely too busy to have those appointments at school. That's also some of the difficulties I think some parents find. They have issues with the school education. Oh, my child's going to get excluded, blah, blah, blah. But they're also working full time. And obviously the school only have school hours for you to have these meetings. They're not going to have you at 7 p.m. come after work.
Yeah.
And although it does sound awful, because it's like the government, in a way, the government's not making no sense either, because how are you going to have school that finished at 3:30 but work that finishes at 5? It doesn't make sense. And it's something that I talk about in regards to the talks I do, because it doesn't make sense, Especially if you're trying to build up your career and get to a more of a career job, not working in low paid jobs as well. Jobs that are paid a bit more tend to be the ones with longer hours, not part-time hours. But yeah, I guess the reality is, if you're not there for those meetings, you know, they're talking about truancy, or they're talking about your child not focusing or whatever, and you can't come to any meetings, and then they start choosing what they're going to do. The education system start controlling your child and your child's future, and all those meetings you start missing. I only missed 4. That's enough.
That's how it
Too
starts,
many.
yeah.
That's enough for that school to already start putting things into place to either put your child down. For example, if I wasn't going to those meetings and be like, nah, I'm not okay with this racial abuse thing. You have a meeting on Monday, I'm on my way. Like, instead of them to think they could brush it under the carpet because I'm too busy.
You got work on Monday? Yeah. So we're going to have to be in at 4.
Yeah. I can't make it. Oh, you know what? Oh, and we'll send you a letter in the post about it.
We'll discuss it.
We'll discuss it, We'll let you know the outcome of your child.
Yeah. And although it took such a long time, I was so happy when I got to the end result, and I could actually tell my daughter, like, you remember that meetings, all those meetings I was going to, you remember that letter I sent, you remember about the incident that happened, this is what the outcome was. So in the future, she won't feel like a victim. If these things happen in the workplace or to your friends, stick up for yourself, stick up for your people.
But there's always
because it's important. You can't sit there and be a victim. And I'm so thankful, because she didn't think she was a victim anyway. And that's the reason why she even said it to me.
No, that's good, because on that point, because there's this thing I saw that I fell in love with, and it was like, you shouldn't teach, and I love that because you've just explained it perfectly, is that you shouldn't teach your kids to fight, but your kids should see you fight for them. And I think that's so important, because again, it teaches them the value in themselves. Mom's fighting for me. I'm important. I have value. No one can talk to me like that. No one can treat me like that in the workplace, anywhere. In a relationship, they understand that if mummy's fighting for that for me, I've got to do that for myself as a minimum. So it's important.
Setting a standard.
You set the standard, essentially. You set that standard, and it's so important, man. It's so important.
The teachings of being a parent. One thing that I picked up on from our conversation is just like, you had your mindset on where you want to be. Because at the time when you're thinking about uni, some people could have been like, clearing, not for me. It's not the path I want to take. And there's definitely been moments where you're like, I'm going to go into full-time work. And then now you slowly evolved into having a business. Do you want to talk about how that journey kind of got to where it is today?
So that journey was go through clearing. Well, initially even thinking that I was going to do one random degree. I think it was art or something. Not to say, like, I'm not reducing anyone that did art, but it was something that I just kind of liked, and I thought I wanted to do it. And then actually, when I had all the situations in regards to being a teenage parent and all the issues I faced, I realized actually I want to work with I want to understand young people matters. And that was the reason why I initially chose youth justice. And that was the only one that, when I looked through clearing, was remotely something I could pick anyway. So I thought, okay, cool. This sounds interesting regardless, because I said I did want to work with young people matters. So it's the one that made sense. So then, but I already decided that I am not going to get, firstly, I'm going to get my enough UCAS points for me to transfer, and I'm also not going to leave it on a whole. I think it's also about giving yourself realistic goals, and sometimes just simple goals. I already told myself I weren't going to leave with any mediocre degree either. I just nothing lower than a 2-1. Just because I was a teen mum doesn't mean compared to my peers that all going to uni as well, doesn't mean that I need to get anything lower than that. That was my personal choice. Obviously the benchmark for other people may be different, but that was what I said. That's what I set for myself.
I'm not putting this time, this effort in.
But again, it requires diligence. It required me to be like, as soon as that assignment came, I was the first one. Do you understand? My friends, like, without parents, without children, were like,
I did it last minute.
Like, Harry, how are you getting on with which? That one?
I'm done. That was submitted last week.
Module 4.
I finished that one.
Oh, snap.
I'm on module 9.
Do you get it? As soon as they said dissertation, I'd already started writing the title. Do you understand? I wasn't here waiting around for Timmy to want, should we, come together and see how we can work.
No,
I've got stuff to do. Do you understand?
I've got to think this around my life.
I've got children.
I've got responsibilities.
1 and 2. I also didn't want to miss time with my daughter. I didn't want to. So listen, I studied on a bus, train. even days when she didn't need to be in the childminders or before that point when she was with my mum, I would still do 9 to 5. I would still make sure that that's my studying hours. I'm studying. I can't then moan that I didn't get what I wanted to get when I was there trying to. I'm not saying you can't study with baby, but
it's discipline.
It's a baby, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
it's a bit tricky when baby needs your attention too. So, you know, there were days when I did a little bit of, you know, home studying as well. But the reality is I just told myself there's a lot, you know, uni's available, resources are there to actually go and do it. Go and sit in the library and do what you need to do. And again, when I was going to the library, I didn't tell no one I was going to the library. You can't be following me there and distracting me. So you know the one they'll see,
you go and put in work.
You know the one, what are you doing here? Like, I'm thinking, is it not the library?
I'm studying. What are you doing?
What are you doing here?
You get it? Because even when I tried to do that whole isolated thing, I guess just with my sort of personality and my character, I still had friends. I still had the kind of people around me that always kind of crowd themselves around me. So the reality is I had to just hide myself. Like,
4 hours to complete this, you know.
So then when I finished that year, I then thankfully did get my points to transfer to a different university, and then I changed my degree to youth justice criminology because I also wanted to know the criminal justice system. Due to the fact that I found that a lot of women were falling into the gaps, if it was falling into drugs and alcohol and getting their children removed, or you know, falling into crime or stuff like that, and I just felt like the numbers wasn't making any sense to me, and I just didn't really like that. So I wanted to understand that system in order to helpfully influence that system. And then I guess alongside doing that, I started to put myself out there on social media as well. I started to kind of share my story in regards to like, oh yeah, I'm a teen parent, I got this baby, how I do this, and people started asking me questions. Like, how did you get around like going to university? What kind of degree are you doing? How are you finding it? Blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, people are kind of like having some sort of interest in it. This is cool. But again, at that point, I never saw it as a business. It was just kind of fun, and it was kind of just connecting myself. And again, I didn't really have a following like that. Again, it was like a really small cohort. I think my Insta was still on private then, because it wasn't like, I wasn't trying to put myself out there like that at the time. And again, I didn't see the vision of it being something at that time.
I think that's the beauty.
Yeah. So then when when that time finished and I got my degree, I graduated. I then had a little period where my daughter was too young to go to school because she was an August born, so she kind of just takes longer for them to get to school. And I'd finished uni and I kind of had nothing to do. So initially I sort of thought, this is going to be like my gap year that everyone was talking about. Like, I can do stuff. I can travel. I did, I went to Portugal. Like, I had my first holiday without the baby. I thought, okay, this is cool. But then after a while, like 2 months down the line, it was getting a bit boring personally. Like, just staying at home with baby, how many baby dates can I do?
You get bored.
After a while, it wasn't stimulating me. And maybe it was because I'd done all that studying for so long. It just, me personally, I'm not saying everyone needs to go uni or everyone needs to go do A levels, but maybe it's just my sort of personality. It just, for me, it wasn't enough. So then one of my friends was telling me that there was a business course that I could go on and I could bring my daughter. And I was like, okay, cool. And they have a crash facility or something. And I was like, perfect. So I went on it, and I told her, I don't really have a business though. So what am I supposed to talk about? She's like, you don't need a business, just come along. It'll be something for you to do. And I was like, to be honest, I need stuff to do. Like, all this coffee drinking is just jarring my head. Like, how much watching the baby nap can I do? So it was good to get on that course. And then I went on it, I was on it for, I can't even remember how long it was, enough for her to finally get to school, basically. And then she then got to school, and then I was back to, the ultimate goal. Okay, now I've got the degree, now I've done everything. And I kind of set up a business, and the business initially was I wanted to support young parents. So in regards to like mentorship, being an advocate for them, supporting them if they have family breakdown. And I thought that was my business. I thought that was what my business was going to be. but I guess the reality is when I finally had freedom, my daughter was going to school. I was like, listen, I'm going to go get a job. Yeah. So
do your own
then
thing.
I went to go start my career, I guess. And I know, I've worked with women in prison. I've worked with adults on alcohol and drugs dependencies. I worked as a family support worker. I've worked with adults, young people in poverty. I've worked at a university, so working with students. And I am happy. I am really genuinely happy that I did do that, because it actually gave me the groundwork to understand how organizations work, understand how the money works, understand how funding works, understand why some policies aren't ever changing and reality is not going to change. And, really understand these conversations, how to talk on a professional level, all that kind of stuff that I guess some people don't see when they're like, oh, what's the purpose of going uni? What's the purpose of doing this? But it's levels, it's systems like that I feel builds you up to be able to play the game that you need. You feel
puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
You feel you need to play, firstly, and secondly, the reality is, in regards to the money I could possibly be bringing home was a lot more compared to the jobs that I could only apply for when I didn't have a degree. That's the bottom line. Whatever way people want to see it. Oh, I don't want to go uni, it's not for me. Or I don't want to do this, it's not for me. I don't want to get my GCSEs, it's not for me. The reality is, without GCSEs, it puts you in a different position to me. I'm not saying I'm better than people with without a degree, but the reality is, recruiters, especially in the UK, that's all they see.
The game's
all
the game.
they see
The
is
game's the game.
university, A levels. Okay, well you can your starting rate is this. While someone no GCSEs, no A levels, and it gets the gap is even more if you are a parent. That is the reality, and I didn't want to put myself in a position where Joe Blogs can get a certain amount of money and I can't. Nah, man, we're competing on the same level.
Same level. You don't want to be a statistic.
You got a degree and I got a degree too. I might have a child at home, but I'm still gonna get the same amount.
I'm
gonna work harder than you.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the same reality as you. But then, as I started doing that, I then found that the hours were really long. And as much as I thought, I'm just gonna put my child in childcare, and she was going our day started really early. She was at school by 8. I was picking her up by 6. And then by the time I get home, make dinner, it's time for bed, basically. It's already 8 or something, and I wasn't really having enough time for myself. I wasn't really having enough time for her. So I decided within that point to then go part-time. And I thought that would be a good way to juggle what I needed to do. And again, I feel like that if you are a teenage mum or a single mum, it is good to get certain qualifications, because you can demand a little. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the UK has flexibility, but you can have flexibility because of the fact that you're working in a career role as opposed to jobs that don't pay very well, or pay what's the word, like they don't pay as well. So I then decided to go part-time, but even in regards to it was a big cut from the amount I was getting full-time, but it was still, even working part-time is still more than the money I would ever get working in a lower paid job. That's just how that goes. And the reality is, it wasn't because I was better than anyone else without a degree or blah blah, but it was just the fact that I have a degree. That piece of paper that puts me in a position to even work part-time in my career.
It's like a qualifier. So I've got this piece of paper, so
level up.
This is how much I expect, and I could do part-time.
So I was working part-time, but I was still doing 9 to 5s 3 days a week, and then the 2 days I was, so when I say part-time,
it's 3 days.
So they're not going to give you like 10 to 2 go pick up your child after that. Oh, bye Harrii. Like, no. So I was still doing 9 to 5, and then I was doing the 2 days, and then I guess alongside that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start picking up this business again. And I started getting my following up anyway, because I started writing blogs, because my child was in a different place in her life. So I started writing blogs about it. I started doing YouTube videos. I started, doing like little debates on Instagram. And I realized, there's people are interested in this. And then I started getting people asking me to come do talks. So I started off doing talks in schools. I started talking to young people about healthy relationships, but not saying that young people shouldn't have babies when they're young, but just saying this is the reality of my life. This is what I would suggest you do. This is the advice I can give you. And that was a good stepping stone into the next angle, where I was like, I can actually monetize this and actually actually get some money from being a public speaker. What does that entail? Doing research, writing content. And when I say content, I help other people that are trying to like organizations that are trying to talk to young people online, basically. So I help with their Instagram, their Twitter accounts, their Facebook account, because I actually like that. I sit at home doing that anyway. So, you know, to get them to be paid to do that, it's not a problem.
It's a winning formula.
Yeah. But I guess when I then got into doing that, although it was like, oh yeah, like people want to pay me to talk, it was getting a lot, because I went part-time thinking I would get more time. And in the spare time, I decided to give myself
more work to do,
basically. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. I think it's just generally my personality, but I just realized like there's not enough time for me to do this. And then I guess it kind of all just came at a perfect time. Although, like I said, I didn't want that whole situation to happen with my daughter, but it came at a perfect time for me to be like, I've got everything I need to get from understanding the sector I'm trying to go into. And initially, like I said, I thought I wanted to offer services to young people or young parents, like mentorship and stuff like that. But then I then started to realize actually there's a bit of a gap, because if I'm kind of trying to offer these services to people that may not have the resources to be able to pay me, it's okay to do it as a free service, and it's something that I'd still like to do, like just generally spend time talking to young parents about their situation. But the reality is, in order to make the change I wanted to make in some policies, I had to speak to those policymakers, the professionals, the organizations that are working with those teenage parents. And that's what I do now as a young parent consultant. I go and do talks to organizations to talk to them about how they can better support teenage parents in the workplace, how they can better support teenage parents in the hospitals, how they can better support, get teenage parents involved or engaged. And then sometimes those are short projects. It might be me just talking to a room full of people, and sometimes it can turn into longer projects where people want to report about it. They want to talk about what is happening on the ground. They want me to like go and do focus groups with teenage parents. And again, that's how it's all joined up now, because sometimes, for example, if I'm looking for a focus group, I'm looking for like 4 17-year-olds that have had babies. I literally go on my Instagram, they're there. Like, is anyone about? We'll offer you, if I can get money, if this organization offer money, we'll pay you this, childcare, blah blah blah.
Jeez,
who's available this time, blah blah blah. And I already have all that groundwork that I need to do. Is there, so I'm happy for all. So in regards to me spending, although it took longer than I thought it would take, it. I guess I worked in my sector for about. Well, overall, I guess it's about 8 years now, but it took longer than I thought it would. And I was doing this whole social media thing because I just found it fun. It's all kind of somehow
come together, hasn't it? Yeah, come together.
And again, when people talk about entrepreneurship and business and blah, 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 it wasn't anything that I studied or thought I was ever going to do. I never saw myself as a businesswoman. But I guess I'm wearing that hat, and I feel like people shouldn't be kind of scared to kind of go down that avenue. If you are your value, you are your value. So if there is something that people are saying they want, if you can cook, and people keep on saying, oh, can you come to my event to cook? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't cook for free. Like I said, I started off giving advice for free and doing, going to talks, but then eventually I was like, oh, like people actually do this as to get money.
That's your sauce. You put it in a bottle, you sell it.
Yeah.
Formula. No, you're there, man. You're definitely there. And I like the point you mentioned about going straight to the policymakers, the policy owners, because you can knock on as many doors as you want, but until you kind of get it in the engraved writing, in the formulas and the policies, that's where the change happens. Going to the root cause. Who are the policymakers? What changes can we put and really effect change? That's where it's going to happen. And you're doing a lot. You are actually honestly doing a lot. You're doing bits, man. Like, oi. You've got so much going on.
To be in, because also you could be the voice of other young parents as well.
Yeah.
And if you've got that connection to those companies, you can be like, listen, I spoke to them.
Yeah.
This is the issue they're facing right now in 2019. Yeah. You're looking at I don't know, research from 2017.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is what's happening
Yeah.
now.
And you've
Yeah.
experienced it yourself as well, so
Yeah.
you can speak on it genuinely
Yeah.
as well. Like, it's
Yeah.
one thing for a white man to represent black men, but a black man representing black men and black young boys, he knows what they're going through. He's
Yeah.
been there, he's seen it, and you're in a position where you've been there, you've seen it, you've experienced it. So you're the best person, you're best placed to kind of speak on that and just talk on it. And you're doing bits, man.
Yeah.
You know what? Can you, before we even close, can you just do a little plug? Because I know you have so much value to give, and there's people probably listening when they're listening to this, like, but who is she? Where can I find her? Like, you got to plug properly every platform that they can find you on, even what train you get, so they can find you. Like, oh, that's her, Jubilee line, yeah.
I don't
Come
want
on,
the 2 boys 25 and 21 to find me. I'm all good. Like,
You saying I'm slow?
Jubilee, yeah, 9 a.m.
Cool,
Alright,
now.
I'll see you there. What are you saying now?
Plug your stuff.
yes, so you can find me at Mummy Harrii on Instagram. So that's spelled as Mummy MummyHarrii, and that's the same on YouTube and on my WordPress as well. It's the same. The only one that's different is Twitter, which is basically London, which is spelled as basically London. Which I need to change at some point, but yes, it's that for now. And then the rest is just my government name. So so LinkedIn, Harriet Williams. I think Harriet with 2 T's and then Williams, and then same with like my email address and stuff like that. Yeah,
That's honestly,
plug.
that has been a great kind of conversation.
Thanks for
and
having me.
No, thanks for coming. Honestly, thanks for coming and just kind of unpicking all the different kind of areas related to parenthood, raising children, and everything else we discussed, and just giving people an insight into what you're doing, how they can navigate, this sort of thing, parenthood, with their lives, irrespective of age. Like, I think a lot of what you've spoken about isn't just relevant to people who are like teenagers, teenage pregnancies. It could be relevant to people having kids in their 20s, 30s, whatever age bracket there is. And honestly, we appreciate you coming down and just sharing your story and plugging. And those guys will not find you. They're gonna leave.
Don't worry.
You.
Back off, guys.
Yeah.
we could be friends.
It's all good. It's all love.
Have you got any last messages that you want to share out to any potential people listening?
I think the last message would just be, I know sometimes people feel quite reluctant to go down the whole, I speak to, especially because I look quite young, I'm quite small as well. People don't automatically feel, I don't know what a mum looks like, but apparently I don't look like one. So it is interesting because I have conversations where people just start throwing out all the reasons why they can't be a parent, and all the challenges, all the difficulties, all the, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money, I don't have this, I don't have that, which is great because it's for me to then say, at every point at your life, there is going to be something that's going to be the biggest priority to you. If it's debt, if it's paying a mortgage, if it's paying for something, if it's doing, I'm not saying they're on the same level as having a child, but I'm just saying at all points in your life, there's going to be something that you need to focus your attention on. And if you've managed to do that, or if you're managing to do that, it doesn't make a difference. I feel like at all points, you're always going to feel like you never have enough money. Even if you was a millionaire, I'm sure there are millionaires that have children and they still say, I don't have enough money. Do you understand? Because of course you want to give your children the best. But I feel like the most important thing is, again, back to what I was saying, healthy relationships. If you're in a healthy relationship and everything else, most of it, and you again, like I was saying, I was set on certain, fundamental goals, like having somewhere to live, all that kind of stuff. You have that. Not, sometimes I feel like people they want the mansion to live in, they want this salary to have, they want, they want a mortgage, they want this, they want a car, I have to have a car with 6 seats already. I just feel like some of those things are things to aim towards. At least if you have a car, and sometimes you don't even, like in London, sometimes
no, you don't even need it.
You may not even need the car. Sometimes it's so many reasons to why I can't have children, and I feel like the conversation sometimes it gets a bit boring for me.
I think that's the kind of, I want to say, like, me and Ola had a conversation earlier about that. Like, I don't know if it's just, I don't want to do a gender thing, but I think it might be a male perspective a lot of the time. Like we want to get everything in place and not realize. I know you're laughing because like as you're saying that, it's like you're always going to.
It does tend to be men. I can't lie. It does tend to be men.
I didn't want to start a war.
But there are women that feel like I need to focus on my career, and I've just spoke about the fact that you have to decide what's the most important thing to you. And a lot of people, like I said, there was at one point in my life, the career was the most important thing to me, or one of the most important things to me, and it can move around. Do you get it? My daughter might get to 15 and I'm like, the career's my daughter's doing her own thing. Actually, career, here you go. Yeah. Like I've got other things to do, or leisure time, or activities, or I want to pick up boxing, or I want to do something. And I feel like you can move around these things, and I don't know why we need to be so stringent with all these categories, with raising kids, having a life or whatever else. Like, be free, like enjoy your life. Have, don't get me wrong, have the fundamentals. I think it is important if you can, if that's possible, to put those fundamentals in place so your child has something to come to. Yeah. But everything else can be built. If the same way people build themselves to be a millionaire, you have they build it, isn't it? It's all possible. So keep on aiming to the sky and all that fluffy stuff.
I love the messages there, man. No, honestly, thank you once again, honestly, for coming down and just sharing your story and telling the people the truth, the reality, and what it is and what can be achieved. And again, the point about just not having all those, not looking at all the kind of barriers to having children or any other type of goal. Again, we really appreciate you coming down.
Thank you.
We've told everyone where they can find you, quick little plugs and all that good stuff. And again, thanks again everyone for listening in. We appreciate it as always. And you can find us Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and we will no longer be on SoundCloud, so do look out for us on iTunes, Spotify and other platforms. And that is us for another episode.